Welcome to another episode of Out of Your League. We're absolutely delighted to be joined by Courtney Winfield-Hill. We were just chatting before we came on. In life you meet people or you chat to people, and sometimes, Flash, you get a sense of who they are before you've even, before you know them, you get a sense of who they are. You ever meet people like that?
Yeah, I had a very positive first impression, so I'm just wondering what yours is.
Well, no, before I met Courtney, we chatted maybe twice. So I interviewed with Sky Sports, and then once when you were getting off the bus to play St Helens. I feel like this is like a therapy session, like I'm giving you feedback on your personality or something.
That's okay, everyone can do a therapy.
Yeah, you get a chance as well. Very direct, brutally honest, competitive. You ooze competitive. I don't know what it is about you. And you've got this confidence and a self-assuredness that I think not a lot of people have, actually. So that's a good...
I've given all my cards away.
Congratulations. That sounds good.
Congratulations.
Yeah, it's a good resume he's giving you there.
Oh, right. I was like, on what? What's the
No,
news?
congratulations
That's news.
on positive feedback from Jon Wilkin.
Well, yeah.
I got to keep some cards close to my chest.
I think you probably do.
That's nice that that's your first impression.
We're trying to get those cards away from your chest a little bit today.
Right.
That's the plan. Anyway, we'll see.
All right.
We'll see. Mark, you're delighted because we've got an Australian.
Yeah.
And what does that allow you to do, Mark?
Talk about when I play for West Tigers again. Fucking hell. I'm sick of talking about it. But yeah, I do like talking to Australians because I do what most Aussies used to do to me, is when I say something in my strong Oldham accent, they'd repeat it back and take the piss. So I've been doing a bit of that, saying mate and but at the end of most sentences, even though there's no but to come.
We've been talking about this Anglo...
Yeah, nah, we'll have to throw one of them
Yeah, now
in.
it's like, yes,
Yeah, nah.
yes, no, what is it?
Yeah. And what's the English? What's the English equivalent of what we've given you there? The but, mate.
It's the all right.
All right, mate.
That's very English, isn't it? And something I'm still not used to.
It's not a question. It isn't a question. It's just
No,
all right.
it's like you don't really care how I am. Right?
No.
So when you first arrived, you were answering the question every time someone said, all right.
Yeah.
You're like, yeah, I'm good.
Some
how are you?
people just, give you a nod, like, yep, acknowledge I've just been spoken to, but yeah, I'm good, thanks. How? And they're like, oh, bit much.
Too much.
Bit much.
Less. Yeah, no. I think I've listened to be interviewed before, and just for people who aren't familiar with what you're about, just give us a summary of who you are, what you are, what you're up to.
It's an interesting question because who I am and what I am are two very different things.
Right, great.
And probably about 5 years ago, if I said to you, if you asked me, who are you? I would have said, I'm a cricketer and I'm a teacher. Literally, I got asked that question by a family member one time. And they said, are you serious? Is that all you are? So these days, I suppose, who am I? I'm a daughter, sister, auntie, wife, granddaughter, niece, all those things, friend. But who am I? That's who am I? What am I? I suppose, what am I now? I'm a pain in the arse a lot of the times.
Yeah, that would.
Lozzie will testify to that.
Yeah, I forgot to mention that in the character assessment that I made of you.
Pest.
A pain in the arse. Pest. Yeah.
Pest.
John can relate to that. You can be
Yeah,
a pest at times.
yeah. I've spot one.
Yeah. Takes on to know one.
Yeah.
But I sit here with you guys as what am I? I'm a rugby league player. I'm a sport enthusiast. I'm a cricket coach. So I suppose that's the what.
Yeah, you fit so much, like, into your life. Really interesting sort of story. But as we tend to do, we like to go back, right back to the start of it all. So give us, I think, a glimpse into what your childhood was like.
Yeah.
And where it was.
Yeah. So, we're in the middle of Manchester here, hey, like.
Are you okay in Manchester? You feel okay?
This is the big smoke for me.
Just don't look up. Just it might be a bit scary.
Yeah, very. I feel a million miles away when and I quite often do. I drive around, especially over here in England, and I think, how the hell am I here? I grew up in a tiny, well, actually, I was born near Fraser Island, Harvey Bay. So
Nice.
Spent 6 years by the seaside as a tiny tot, and then mum and dad up and moved out to the sticks, proper sticks.
Why was that? Work?
Sticks Australia, right?
Sticks,
Sticks
the
England,
bush.
but Sticks England means, right, 8 miles outside of Manchester.
Yeah.
Sticks Australia can
We're
mean.
talking 600 kilometres northwest of Brisbane.
So that's Sticks. So
So-
if you ever want to say you live in the Sticks,
Yeah,
it needs to be at least 600
Yeah,
kilometres.
Whitehaven's like a metropolis compared to that, isn't it?
600 kilometres. You're probably in the sea, aren't you?
Yeah,
Or France.
somewhere
We're in
out in the
France.
sea.
We're in France.
So, yeah, it was quite a rural upbringing, I suppose. And I was a typical bush kid. Like, didn't really wear shoes much. Constantly out helping dad on the farm, running around no shoes on at lunchtime in the dust at school, playing any sport that could go, really.
How big was school?
Not very big.
Yeah,
I think it was about 130 kids in the whole school. That was like Diddy's to year 7 equivalent.
So
or
what's
primary school.
What village? What is it? Village? do
So
we
it's
call
called
it?
Monto. We
Monto.
would refer
It's
to it as a town.
It's a town.
So yeah, so Monto was where I grew up, and it was terrific. You had so much freedom,
Yeah.
which was really cool. And
Freedom in what sense? That you, it's just a wild environment where anything goes, or you're just outside. You live.
I think when I say freedom, your parents just gave you so much trust, and I think the trust came from being in a really tiny country community. They didn't need to have eyes on you all the time because someone else did. So someone else, parents, everyone was always looking out for their own kids, but everyone else's kids as well. It was such a nurturing kind of community. But don't get me wrong, they were looking out for you, but they'd soon dob on you too. So when I did something
Do
naughty,
you get dobbed on a few times?
yeah,
Yeah.
all the time.
Yeah.
It's causing fights and all sorts as a little one. So that
Causing
would
or
get,
being involved in? Or do you start
Oh.
it and then...
No, I was probably just the person that was sticking up for someone else.
Yeah.
Typically the girls getting roughed about, or, you know, so if I was doing anything wrong, and my mum was the hairdresser in town, so if I did anything wrong, it was back to her before I could get back to the salon.
Right. She was the counsellor, the town counsellor.
Oh, yeah, that comes with hairdressing, doesn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, I'd walk in the salon and she'd go, "I've heard this, get up there and apologise now." Oh, great. How do you know?
Straight away.
Straight away.
Within minutes.
Yeah.
So mum was a hairdresser
Yep.
in the town. Dad was
Yeah, farmer.
farmer.
Yep.
Sisters, brothers.
Well, I have 2 sisters, but
Yeah.
I only ever had one until I was 13. So it was Brodie and I,
Right.
my younger sister. And then when I was 13, Luca came along. She's our little family surprise package. And so, yeah, so grew up sort of, I was off to boarding school at that time when Luca came along, but it soon makes you grow up really quickly having a tiny one in and around the house, like probably more so my sister. She did her motherhood apprenticeship very early.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what were you like as a kid then? Give us a bit of a glimpse into Courtney as a child.
Wild.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was very busy. I was always looking for things to do. If it wasn't sport, it was just adventuring on the farm and working with dad, working with mum. Like, we just got put to work pretty early, taught the ropes. But I was always, if there was sport, I was there. I was competing. I didn't care if it was with the boys. I just didn't really have any inhibitions. Like, yep, I'll do that. I'll try that.
That's such a great environment as a kid,
Yeah.
just to be free and just to go with your instincts and just play and just
Yeah.
there's no judgment. It's just kind of do what you want. If you want to join in, play sport or help out, that'd be really liberating, I think, as a
I
kid.
think it's a
wouldn't it?
challenge in the modern world to replicate what you've just described there.
Yeah.
That's a challenge, isn't it, for parents or for
Yeah.
young people now?
I think I was instilled with a level of self or just reassurance and assurance that you could do stuff. So I say freedom. like Dad was all about letting me try things. If it resulted in an accident, that was okay. We're on the farm and it probably wouldn't hurt too many people. But, you're driving cars from 6 years old. 6 years old.
Jesus.
Now, that's a lot of freedom.
That's
But they're terrific skills.
maybe a bit,
and
maybe a bit too much freedom.
It's a lot of trust as well.
oh,
isn't
yeah, I've had some accidents, don't you worry. But didn't really hurt anybody.
It? Didn't really hurt anybody. I didn't hurt anybody.
Well, I put my sister's forehead through the windscreen once.
But it's just a flesh
once.
wound.
A couple of tears.
Yeah, you learn.
Dad,
That's just a
Dad
once.
told me to pull up to shut a gate, and I pulled up a little bit too quick, hit the brakes, and Brody's head hit the windscreen, smash it went. And he threw it. He said, "I said woo."
Should have had a
Sorry,
seatbelt
Dad,
on
I'm 7.
I'm 7.
And she was bouncing around, dancing.
though. So it's her
She
fault.
should have been sitting down.
Yeah.
So it sounds like a childhood full of like that. What you've described there is an incredibly happy environment, isn't it?
Yeah, oh, definitely. Like, there was plenty of really cool stuff. Plenty of other bits that shape you and give you resilience too. Living in the country is wonderful, but it was hard life for my parents. Like, it was hard slog. They're both of them collectively and together, their best asset is probably both of them, their work ethic. I mean, there's not too many lazy farmers out there, and my mum works round the clock. So, they were the kind of parents that they weren't always at my sport. They did their best to get to some things. Either, mum never missed a sports carnival, like a sports day at school, ever. Or if it was a big thing, they would always try and make the effort. But otherwise it was jump in so-and-so's car and here's $10 for fuel. Or, you're going to be billeted out with a family you don't know wherever you're going, because they had to work.
Yeah.
Australia's different here, like drought times. And
What kind of farm was it?
so we mainly did, initially it was like lucerne and hay growing. But it was tough going in the drought, and it was sort of few cattle moping about, but mainly grain. So Dad was, right into his grain and sort of did all the harvesting locally, contracting and what have you as well. So.
But you loved sport from a young age, right? And that was probably an outlet for you, your energy. You've got this outgoing personality, right? So
Yeah.
sport became a great outlet for your energy, I'd imagine.
I needed an outlet for my energy. Otherwise I would have sent everybody in the house mad. I still did, even with sport. But no, I think my parents realised early that that's what made me happy, and brought me a lot of joy. And, eventually it was noticed that, she's a little bit of a natural at most things, so let her go into those spaces. And, both my parents, they weren't world beaters at sport. My dad played rugby league, but never to a ridiculous standard, a lot of local stuff. And Mum, she'll smack me for saying it, because I've said it before, but she was the person, I said to her once, she'll just give anything a go. She's not the best at it. She's the first parent in the parent race on sports day. She wouldn't win it,
But
but
she'd have a crack.
every time she was the first person there. And when you're a kid, you're like, oh my God, shame. Like, here she goes again.
Trying really hard and not winning.
Yeah.
That's such a British
But
thing. Was she British?
Far out. She would give it her all. And even now, like, you go home and I'd say to Loz, righto, okay, it's not I say to Loz. Loz says to me, we're training today. Oh, okay. Get Dad's sledgehammer out the shed, get an old tractor tyre, and we're...
Sounds like a Rocky movie, this.
Yeah. So we're bashing away in the heat, and Mum will say, I'll do it with yous. And Lauren looks at me like, is she really going to
We
do
need
it
to
with us?
backtrack
She's
here.
nearly
Lauren-
60.
Lauren is your wife.
Yeah, sorry.
So Lauren,
Yeah,
the reason
the
you
boss.
are the reason you are in England
yes.
is
Love
Lauren.
does weird things to your brain.
Lauren.
Brings you
So
across
we'll get on to Lauren and your wife.
But yeah, she'll look at me like, is your mother serious? And I'm like, just don't even try and stop her.
Yeah, she loves
So
it.
she's out there flipping tyres, and she won't be able to walk the next day, but she thrives on it. So between the two of them, Yeah, I think I've got a blend of both those characteristics for sure.
Was that inspirational for you as a kid to see your mother always compete and always want to kind of win and kind of take part in different stuff?
Yeah, there was elements. Depends when she wanted to do it, because on sports day in front of all your mates, it was probably a bit like, oh God, here she goes, and you'd look at my sister Brodie and I'd be like, what's going to go down here? But eventually you start to see it and you go, hang on a minute, who else's mum's out here? It's usually the dad's. No one else's mum's out here. And then you go, hang about.
Yeah, there's something in this.
Yeah, like all of us as kids, you don't appreciate some stuff. Dad was the more natural athlete of the two, but farming, he didn't, and being in a rural community, he was probably 30-odd by the time we moved there. And I never really got to see him play properly. Some nights they'd play old bucks versus the young lads. And I remember watching him a couple times as young, and he lit the show up. Like, he was rapid. And he'd score tries. Do you remember old Nathan Blacklock? And
Play at the Dragons,
he'd flip and he'd do all sorts. And I'd stand there and go, far out, Dad's not bad, hey?
That's not bad.
Dad's not bad. He couldn't move for the next week.
Yeah.
But it just wasn't a
come
priority.
Game time, he flicked a switch and he was...
Yeah. He'd light it up.
Did he showboat like that? Did he do in like the celebrations and stuff? He loved it.
Yeah.
I love that.
He'd do it on purpose, but he knew he'd pay for it though the next day.
So I'm trying to get into your head. So you massively not gifted, but you love sport, and sports becoming an integral part of your childhood. You know, your family, your story is sort of all linked with sport. Now, being in isolated rural communities brings some challenges in that respect, doesn't it? If you're particularly gifted, Flash, but you live in an isolated community, actually getting a path out of that can be tricky sometimes.
Yeah, we see it in our game, in Whitehaven quite a lot. There's really talented players that don't have the spotlight of players who play in the more of the heartlands around the M62 corridor, and they get left out. So I think a little bit of luck. I think sometimes if you're the right place at the right time, if there's a carnival where there's a scout or something, there's just less opportunities for you to shine, really, I think. And so it's a little bit of luck comes into it, doesn't it? Yep.
And that's a challenge of these days. And I think sporting bodies are so much more aware of it now. And is that ensuring that everybody, if they are talented, have the space to show it or access it, etc. And it was a challenge as a kid growing up. Naturally.
You acknowledge that might not happen for you where you were, or there was a decision to. Oh, there was. To move away.
Probably sort of by the time I turned 12. Well, actually, I was probably 8, and I don't know if it was.
Maybe 6. Actually.
Hang a minute. When I was about 8, my mum had said to me, and I don't know if it was you're showing a bit of promise in and around your physical capabilities with sport, or if it was you're a pain in the arse and we're going to clash when you're a teenager, so off to boarding school.
Yeah.
So, like I said, it was quite rural, so Mum had said, no, you're going to Rocky. You're going to boarding school.
The bright lights of Rocky.
Yeah, the big smoke. So, just to access those different resources and bigger ponds, basically. And Rocky wasn't even the big smoke. I had a choice whether I went to Brisbane or Rocky. Eventually chose Rocky. And it was just to access better education, better sporting coaches, facilities, competitions.
And how was that, boarding school?
Loved it.
Did you?
Best days of my life. I'd go back tomorrow.
Would you?
Yeah. Yeah.
Loved it.
Just played sport all the time.
Yeah.
Being with your mates.
I think as well, it was of more variety of sports. So any given afternoon, I could be doing something different. I played anything. Monday nights was water polo night. Tuesday nights was touch footy, or Friday nights touch footy. Wednesday nights I was off. I never played netball, but I'd go off with the girls and be water girl for them. Could be swimmer carnivals, athletics. Played basketball there for a bit. Cricket came in a little bit. It was just anything you wanted to do. It was kind of on.
So we've got a saying over here: when it's a male and they're gifted at a number of sports or interested and good at turning the hand at sports, it's sport Billy, isn't it?
Yeah.
But then we were just chatting before.
Yeah.
Is sport Billy like a patriarchal? Is that a masculine sort of term? And then as long as it's Billy IE, so you were a sport.
Yeah.
You were a
Sport Billy IE.
Billy IE.
Were you a sport, Billy?
Yeah, I very similar to Courtney. I tried everything. Like, tried cricket, basketball. I had a basketball hoop on my garage. Like, I had a baseball bat and a baseball. Like weird things.
Baseball over here,
Yeah,
really?
exactly. So
Baseball
Wow.
bat has 2 uses, doesn't it? Just in
Yeah.
case.
Bit
My-
of protection.
Especially in Hull.
my granddad played for. There was one baseball team in Hull. My granddad played for this
Seriously?
baseball team. So the bat I had was his bat. So
That's
why
mega. I never knew that.
That's cool.
Yeah, the Hull
Hull-
Royals.
Hull Royals.
Hull Royals.
Have you
there
still
That
got
go.
sounds
the
like a
bat?
hospital.
Granddad it's under my bed just in case we get broken into. Yeah.
Not like a vintage sporting piece somewhere.
No, it's not
just,
mounted on the wall. It's
Yeah.
under my
It's got
bed.
bits of blood and
So
teeth in it. Yeah.
Anybody watching, it's under my bed, so don't break
Don't
into my
bother.
house. Yeah. No, so yeah, I think being really inquisitive and wanting to get into lots of sports is I think it's perceived as a weakness sometimes. You've got such a varied sort of skill set. But I actually think it's such a strength flash, isn't it? To just go and if you like sport, why would you not try everything?
Well, there's crossover skills between lots of different sports. So, tennis, cricket, hand-eye coordination. There's little parallels between everything. It's about football. I used to play a lot of and like awareness and seeing peripheral division. There's lots of different skill sets that I think probably form really good athletes. And I think being out and about, being active, it keeps you fit. And I was one of those kids who played everything. And I think it made me channel my efforts into the sport that I loved the most and I was probably the best at, which is rugby league. But I had to find my way by doing a bit of everything, and it was having a good crossover probably served me quite well.
Do you think we get too specific with
Yep.
young athletes now?
You don't
Say
even
that a
have
bit
to finish-
quicker. Yeah.
You don't even have to finish that sentence.
Yeah.
And I suppose in my proper work role, being a cricket coach and looking after the Diamonds Academy, I constantly say to the girls, play as much as you can for as long as you can, and do not let, boys or girls, do not let someone dictate to you that you can or cannot do whatever extra sport until they put a contract in front of you.
Yeah.
Until then, you're your own woman, man, whatever.
Yeah.
Because I think you don't want to say do what I did. I want them to be better than me. But I have seen so much value in it, and we're starting to see so much more research come out around it now, which is variety of sports and the transfer. And
So you were accidentally a pioneer when it comes to your varied sporting background.
yeah, well, I think everything's a little bit cyclic too, though, isn't
Yeah,
it?
yeah.
Like, and it's interesting. I see it more so in male sport, but it's coming that way with female sport now that it's an actual, in some sports, careers, specialisation so early.
Yeah. Before you have any like the muscle memory, like you don't adapt, you become really specifically honed in on one thing. And all of the other sports that you play as a child, like they really feed in, like Flash said, like every sport is three-dimensional, isn't it? There's not
Yeah.
really one action that's repeatable in any sport.
Yeah. If you're a halfback and you played football all your life, you're going to kick a ball better than you've never played football, aren't you? So you could go through 20, 30, 40, 50 different skills that you acquired during your childhood that can set you up through different sports, can't
I think that's the space we always go to, is the physical things that we can transfer, or the skill thing, the physical skills. But we forget all the mental skills and the character building that transfers. And people quite often ask me, like, what's been the best skill that I can transfer from cricket to rugby? There's only so many physical ones between the two because they're so vastly different. But the biggest thing is the mental. For me.
Yeah.
Which mental skills do you think cricket to rugby league?
Cricket, lots of things. I think competitive nature is just instilled in me. I wouldn't say that's necessarily from cricket, but I do think two things probably that come from cricket. Number one is how tactical it is, and I'd like to think that perhaps I bring that to rugby. Rather than thrash, bash, crash, there's a bit of thought behind how I play and perhaps how I lead. And then potentially, and I didn't do a lot of it in cricket, but captaincy in cricket's different. I find captaincy at rugby, it's breeze.
Yeah, yeah.
The captain's bigger than the coach in cricket. And while I didn't captain a lot of teams, the exposure to it, or leadership groups as such, were enormous.
Yeah. So we got into cricket here. So let's get back to Rockhampton. I'm putting you back in Rockhampton. So you're back at boarding school.
I feel like I'm in Rockhampton
No, you
today
are.
with
Sit
37 degrees.
Sit down,
Bloody
Courtney.
beautiful,
Back in
aye.
Rockhampton. So back then, so obviously you've got a varied sporting background, but when you made the move to go to boarding school, it's for education, right, and to get away and a lot of it. But how much of your attention was turned by cricket at that stage, or was it multi-sport still at that point, or did you start to specify at boarding school?
Well, I think before I went to boarding school, like Mum had made the decision from 8 years old, you're going. When I was 12, I started in the Queensland Cricket Pathways. So a couple times a year you'd go to Brisbane and join up and have, week camps. And I think at that point I got selected in the under-17 state team. And they said, we probably see a bit of potential in her. Can we get her to Brisbane? And there was a boarding school that sat literally a couple hundred metres above Queensland Cricket's headquarters and training base. And it was between Rocky Girls Grammar and St Margaret's. And it was at that point, I probably didn't want the city life. I wanted cricket, but I wasn't prepared to be 6 hours away. City life didn't really get me. I had some mates at Girls Grammar already, a couple years older. But the biggest thing is and even at 12, I didn't just want to do cricket. And I felt that by going to Brisbane, it was just everything was going to be cricket. I didn't want that.
Was that a big call to resist that temptation, though? When somebody's telling you you're great at something and you sort of resisting that, was that a big call, or was it just didn't feel like it at
I
the
have
time?
a mind of my own, kind
I
of.
was going to say, when you said first impressions, I was thinking so strong-minded and single-minded. And
Yeah.
Like, whatever you set your mind on, you're probably doing it.
I'm a bit... I take a long time to make decisions, but when I do, I've made a decision.
Yeah, we're in.
Like, my best friend at uni would say, what do you want for dinner? Fish and chips, Chinese, Thai? I'd go Thai. Oh, what about McDonald's, this, that, the other? I just said Thai. Like,
I'd love my wife to be more like that. She's the most indecisive person ever.
Go Thai. That's it. Go.
Brilliant. Love that.
So it was the same with boarding school. That. No, girls' grammar. I'm gone.
Yeah.
So, yeah, off we went.
Has that softened with time, or are you still that? It's not impulsive, that is it? It's thoughtful.
No, it's not
but
impulsive.
Once you make your
I
mind
sit
up,
on things a long time.
Yeah.
But then when you go,
But when I go, no. I've had my time to think.
Yeah. So when you went here, you went towards cricket eventually.
Yeah,
Cricket
eventually.
became-
And, I went to boarding school. And to be fair, when I was 12, when I was at Monto, I loved, and I say it now, rugby league was my first love.
Right.
And I went to an all-girls boarding school. They didn't have rugby league. They didn't have rugby union. They actually didn't have cricket. It came a couple years into. I had to go and play with the boys still at club cricket.
How was that playing? Were you the only female? Or
Yeah.
How was that?
For a while there, it was fine, and I loved it. But then, I actually gave cricket away for 3 years when I was about 16. You've been to Rocky, right?
Yeah.
It's scorching hot and humidity, through the roof. And the boys, started to get a bit dickhead-like
Yeah.
around that age.
As they do.
Don't we all?
When you bruise their ego enough, they start to throw come back at you with just
I thought you were going to
nonsense
say throw
chat.
stones or something then. Throw.
Nonsense chat
Haymakers.
at cricket.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
you're standing there in 40-degree heat, and all my mates were at the beach. And you're there for 7 hours, and I was just like, I don't need this.
Yeah.
I'd prefer to be there. So it was just something that I did, and I just went to other sports.
Yeah.
Played touch footy instead.
And how much, you spoke about there, maybe the restricted opportunities you had because you're a woman.
Yep.
You went to an all-girls school and the certain sports weren't played. Now, you're fiercely independent. You do what you want. You've been used to your dad sort of encouraging you to get stuck into the boys, compete with the boys. But your dad came up with a really great line about, competing, didn't he, with boys in particular.
Oh, yeah.
So
Massively.
He'd encourage you to go head to head with the lads.
Yeah, he probably taught me to embrace the underdog. So whether that was Courtney being the only girl in the boys' team, whether it was Courtney going to Brisbane and sticking it to the city kids,
He created a story.
that's where it came from.
Yeah, a story, like a narrative for you was it injustice or like getting over your competitors, do you think?
Yeah. I just think it was the next stage to competing. It was competing on someone who probably should win, but you're going to go and take it away
Did
from
he
them.
know what he was doing then?
I don't know.
Was he like, I know how to get the best out of Courtney?
I don't know. I'd have to ask, and that's probably a good conversation to have with him
Yeah.
next time I go home was,
I think he could be smart though, because I think parents are quite intuitive to what the kids need. So I'd imagine if I was a father and my son played, it'd be, if he was really confident and cocky, I'd be like, oh, pull him back a bit, rein him in, and say, do you know what, you're not as good as you think, this guy might beat you.
Yeah.
And then the other way, if they were a bit modest, maybe it's self-doubt, which probably you didn't have by the sounds of it, but there's ways of getting the best
Pump
out of
the
your children.
tyres.
Yeah,
Yeah.
pump the tyres up a little
And
bit.
it's interesting, like seeing my nieces and nephews now, it's incredible how early a child's personality is that it's just there.
Yeah,
And perhaps, between mum and dad, they saw that and stoked the fire a little bit.
And were you always small
Yes.
as a kid? Yeah.
Skinniest little rat you
Yeah.
ever did see.
So I think he had to
Yeah.
pump your tyres up a bit there, didn't he?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And that's probably just another one of those underdog battles is go and test it against the big kids.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think my wife, obviously, she competed, she was an athlete, and her dad did this amazing thing where every night when he put her to bed when she was very young, he told her she was a champion, which is like
Really?
weird, isn't it? It's like a strange thing to say. Like I've not really spoke to him about
Bit
it, but I
like
think
King Richard.
yeah, but it's just a strange thing to say. But when I think about it, it sort of ended up happening, and I just wonder, your dad told you to compete, didn't he? He pushed you to compete. And not only that, he sort of instilled, and this is your words, not mine, he programmed you.
Yeah.
And he programmed you to be tough and resilient, didn't he? And how did he do that? We're not saying he did it, he's not like some sort of genius coach, maybe he is.
Yeah.
But he certainly instilled that in you, didn't he?
Yeah, I think Dad's really interesting. I actually think Mum did it more than Dad.
Right.
Dad was, and neither of them pushy parents. Dad was the one that I'd say, right, Dad, I'm off to this. And he'd say, go stick it to the city kids, or if you didn't make a team, his line back was, Hill girls are tough girls.
Yeah.
Yep, right, good, Dad, thank you, good. But Mum instilled the, just give it a go, give it your all. She probably programmed more than anyone. Probably more the optimism piece and the gratefulness piece. I always talk about at the end of a sports day, I was a kid that did everything. By the end of the day, I'd say to Mum, oh, Mum, I can't do the 800. Like, I'm gassed. My legs are killing me. And she'd say, Courtney, some people don't have legs. Get down there now. And she never did it to me or, like, pushed me because she wanted me to win. She wanted me to just step up again. When I was buggered, she would just say, are you actually?
Yeah.
She'll always say, pain. What did she say? Pain is weakness leaving the body, Courtney.
Yeah, yeah. That's,
yes,
but that's,
Go on then, my legs
You're
feel
right.
better.
well, what a thing to give your child.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
What a thing to give your child. That that mindset. Like you know, you talk about having a blend of your parents, Mark. What do you think you took on a blend of Terry and Sue?
Well, my mum was, both mum and dad played sport. Mum played a bit of netball and athletics, but she's very stubborn, and I probably get my personality more from her. Then my dad was he was a skillful player, so he had different attributes. But I think sometimes the fire in me comes from my mum, because she was always quite competitive, didn't take no shit, that kind of person. So yeah, I think you're a combination of your mum and dad. I think in many ways, aren't you? And, yeah, I think from a sporting context, I get a bit of both. How about yourself?
Yes, same. I think Dad's tough, you know. My dad's a tough man, you know. He's if we were farmers, but he's a tough fella. Like, I don't think I've seen my dad be drawn to be emotional about much. Do you know? There's not things. He's just stoic. He's got this like.
They don't stop.
He's solid, and he grafts, and he gets up early, and he works hard, and that's probably his weakness as well. And that's probably one thing that I've taken from him. Sometimes blindly just working, and
they're a product of their upbringing as well, aren't they?
Yeah.
My mum was brought up in a terraced house with 2 other kids, and my grandma went to work in a mill at 12, 13. My granddad worked on a building site as a bricklayer from 15, 16. So they always had a very working class upbringing. My dad was brought up in a pub in the arse end of Oldham. So I think they're shaped by their upbringing, and I think you kind of pass it down to your kids or those close around you.
Are we at that age now, all of us, where we start thinking about the influence our parents had on us? Because I don't think 10 years ago I even thought about it. Do you know? Is it what you're saying now, Courtney? Has it always been in your mind, or have you post-rationalised it? Do you know what I mean? Have we got to a stage?
I think I probably became aware of it through my teens, mid-20s, probably appreciation for it. Yeah. So 2 different awareness turned into appreciation. Yeah.
Because they make some sacrifices, don't they, parents? If you're into sport, there's some big sacrifices have to be made, isn't there?
Money's just one of them.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
So right, well, you're on this path. You're going to be a cricket star, or you're on a pathway to become a star. Was that a straight line, you know, to get to where you wanted to be, or what were the challenges on the way?
I think just being minority, and it was a minority sport for the girls back then. Being in the country, that they were all challenges, and then, like I said, I got to 16 and I went, no, I'm not really up for this week in, week out all the time. I get more enjoyment from playing touch footy, and socially I want to hang out with my mates. I'll play something in the winter, you know. And I left it be for 3 years. But then through university, I went, you know what, I actually quite miss it. There's something I miss about it. So I went back and I played in the men's local league, and it was awesome. Again, I was the only female. At this point, I'm an adult, so I was 19, 20. Again, I'm a young woman now. Like, I'm not a little girl anymore playing with the blokes. And honestly, the way they wrapped around me and supported me was immense. The best club, Frenchville Falcons back home. And that was really positive. And I just went back to play club cricket, and my old state coaches sort of got wind that Courtney's playing again, and we had a national second 11 competition. So they said, come on. So off I popped to that, did a couple of, and that was kind of only a once a year thing. So you'd go away once a year. A couple of years of that, and they said, righto, we want you to play in the state first team, and that was cool. And at that stage, I'd finish uni, full-time teacher, and I'd go backwards and forwards from Rocky to Brisbane. And that was hard slog. And then it just came a point where I thought, no, if I'm going to do this properly, I need to move. It was a good decision, a tough decision, because I said to him, I'm not moving to the city. I'm not coming to Brisbane. I'll go to the Sunshine Coast. I had family there.
And is that about an hour and a half?
Yeah, about an hour 15, hour 20 drive. So I did that multiple times a week and trying to balance being a full-time teacher, travelling to Brisbane multiple nights a week, and then weekends. It was hard slog,
Yeah.
but
then
God, worth it. I say a decade doing first stuff, but 7 years playing on the Sunshine Coast doing the commute.
Yeah, that's a lot of time and effort, that, isn't
Yeah.
it?
And
It's a lot of commitment.
let's talk about women's sport in Australia, because I think I'm aware of the momentum behind women's sport in the UK.
Yep.
But I just don't know benchmarks. I'm naive in terms of a sort of a global
Yeah.
context. Like, where is the development of, women in high level sport profile in this country,
Yeah.
as opposed to maybe where you were when this, your cricket sort of journey in Brisbane was going on?
Collectively, I think Australia are far ahead of the game. When I say collectively across sports. Though if you compare individual sports, cricket, Australia to here, they're probably 5 to 10 years ahead in Australia, I honestly believe. We're trying to narrow that margin up a little bit now. But then you compare like a football here and you look at what's currently going on with the women's football space compared to women's football back home. And, England are far superior in that space.
Yeah.
Just depends on the sport. Rugby league, we're a long way behind.
Yeah.
How far? There's a World Cup this year, isn't there? So
Shitloads.
it's
Shitloads.
Shitloads.
That's a good. You've picked up a really good accent there.
If you want to put it into years, I suppose years-wise, and you put 3-4 years,
Yeah.
the NRLW girls have been paid in some capacity out there. So financially, they're that far ahead. But the biggest thing is, like, you say how far ahead. You look at what that sits underneath the NRLW, and that's things like touch football and OzTag, and the participation numbers in that, and the competitions in that of core skill that come across and transfer. That's enormous.
It's a great gateway, that, isn't it?
It blows my mind that why in this country have we not developed a game like that that's approachable? I walked through Didsbury. Didsbury's like an affluent suburb of Manchester, and they're playing tag, OzTag, or like they're playing tag rugby, and I was like, off their own backs. Obviously, there's a few Australians in there, and they've decided to do it in a park in Didsbury, and you're thinking there's an appetite to sort of do this.
Yeah.
But
And I know they're out there here now. I think the biggest thing that happened I don't know how many years ago now, but instead of seeing them as competitors, the NRL saw it as, no, we need to connect up and partner with these groups. And that's been incredibly successful.
Yeah.
Like, you look at some of across the NRLW, how many of those girls, I guarantee 95% of them will have played OzTag.
Even in the
touch
NRL,
football.
some of the superstars, Benji Marshall, Sean Johnson,
Yeah.
they kind of grew up, and I think it's a great, you touched on it well there, John, it's a great avenue for people to get into the sport, to then to kind of follow it, maybe participate more. And it's a real opportunity for both men's and women's rugby.
right,
Yeah.
let's box cricket off.
Yep.
Highlight in your career, in your cricketing
Cricket.
career,
My friends.
your friends.
Yeah.
That's
That's
such
a
a
good question.
that's such a socialist answer.
That's a
isn't it?
wholesome answer, isn't
It
it?
is a
Everyone's
very wholesome
listening and
answer.
watching this going, oh, bloody hell, what a
Serious.
great,
Yeah.
what a great
Like,
bird.
you
Meeting
talk about
people.
what have you walked away from the game with? We did manage to win be the first Queensland team that ever won a National League. New South Wales were just ridiculously dominant. Medals-wise, that was really cool. But I walk away with the deepest of friendships from those playing groups. And I say friendships from peers, friendships from coaching staff. The best thing I ever take from that space.
And one of the biggest friendships or loves came out of
Yeah,
cricket,
Lozzie.
didn't it?
Lozzie.
Lozza. So Lauren.
Yeah, yeah.
So tell us about Lauren because the reason you're in the country is obviously you married Lauren Winfield, who was England cricket player. You've ended up here, but how did you meet?
So she came across to the Brisbane Heat. In the first year, she was the overseas signing.
The marquee signing, the big name.
Marquee signing, yeah. And she went for the absolute idiot of the group. And she was warned about me too.
Was she?
Yeah.
Stay away from her.
Stay with the one.
The England captain at the time.
She's got no shoes on. She's walking around in the dirt over there.
And I never trained in shoes.
Did you not? Seriously?
No, all our running training, shoes off. Obviously, I couldn't bowl without shoes on, but as soon as it came down to our conditioning runnings, shirt was off, shoes were off, see you later. So she comes over to the Brisbane Heat, and the England captain at the time said, "Oh God, you're going to Queensland. I'll tell you who's there. A girl by the name of Courtney Hill, and she's a pest. She said more than pest.
Stay well away.
Stay away from her. She's a pain in the ass." Next minute.
Loza likes a pain in the ass.
Yeah. Something like that.
You became her pain in the ass.
Yeah. So, and then we did distance for 2 years. And then Lauren said, she was finding it just hard to be apart all the time. And it was, them tough days, you just want to go home and someone to hug you and say it's going to be okay. Or great moments where you want to celebrate with somebody.
That's tough if she's away from her family and she's probably the bit of a loner to begin with, and then she finds connection with you. It must be key for her to be around you as much as possible, I'd say. Yeah,
well, she only came over quickly. She was only there for 2 months, and then she headed back over
right,
here.
okay.
So I stayed in Oz.
Bloody hell,
here.
you made an impact.
Right.
Big impact.
Big impact.
Big impact.
Yeah.
So it's 2 years across the globe.
And we would literally count down days. Like I'd drop her off at the airport, and God, you don't know heartbreak. Yeah. Well, that's the biggest heartbreak I've felt in my life, is dropping your loved one off at an airport. International airports, God, they get you for both sides. Absolute joy and absolute heartbreak. I'll see you in 4 or 5 months.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
And I'm the kind of person, and she got angry with me because I'd go, right, 134 days, and I'll put my blinkers on, 134 days, and I'll see you at the end of the tunnel. She struggled with that. Yeah. She couldn't.
Yeah, I found it really interesting just reading and listening about you two as a couple. You're very different, aren't you?
Yeah.
Like, because of my character sort of assumptions about you, maybe not how you describe Lauren. Is that
No.
right? Is that why you work?
Yeah, we're polar opposites. But that is what makes us work. It's what challenges us the most, but it's what brings you back together. So yeah, 2 years, and I lost my contract with cricket. Couple of ankle surgeries later, and I never got back to where I was. I felt that I could with time, but they had some young guns coming through, and at that point I was like, okay, do I move into state? I didn't want to. I'm a bit of a. When it comes to sport, my mates, I'm quite loyal. And I thought, do I go to another state? I didn't really fancy playing against the girls who were just my everything.
Yeah.
And especially not when Loz was over here. So I thought, just pack up and go. Just go and try something new.
That's your mum's spirit in you coming out, isn't it? But that's a big decision, isn't it? Yeah, I mean, Mark, you've been there. You've made that.
Yeah.
You've been.
You did the opposite. You went that way.
The other way, yeah. It was. Yeah, I don't know why you've come this way. It's rubbish.
I tell you.
Yeah.
Love destroys chemistry in your brain.
It does.
It must do. Yeah.
It does.
I was always I've tried something new. I think I'd travelled to Australia and seen it and thought, wouldn't mind. I could never live there forever, but I always thought early 20s for a couple of years, experience something different, meet new people, grow up a little bit rather than being a stupid young man in the north of England that doesn't know any better. I think living on your own, fending for yourself was really important for me. And yeah, some of the best things in my life came from the travel and trying something new. And
How old were you when you went?
I just turned 22, so I was 22 and 23.
Pretty young.
So I come from mum and dad's house. Can't wash up or iron or cook.
You can now, Mark.
Oh, I can now. Anything minced meat based, whether it's
Mark loves cooking
Tacos.
mince.
so it's
No, just if you
Shepherd's
go
pie.
for dinner
Shep-
at Mark's, it's just mince.
spaghetti bolognese, chili, or lasagna. That's pretty much it.
That is it.
That's
Yeah.
not bad. That's
Kind
a
of
good 3.
Yeah, it's a good 3. Well, that's it. Very
Solid.
limited.
It's entry level 3 though, isn't
Yeah,
it?
it is. Yeah.
quite
Carbs
basic.
and meat.
So how excited were you? You know, you're coming over here,
Yeah.
different side of the world. Look, you spoke about your background, so you're this rural, hillbilly, hickey sort of
Yeah.
out in the wild kid. Feral, I imagine you've got twigs.
Feral, that is
twigs,
the word for
you've got
it.
like
I like
twigs
hickey
in
as
your
well.
hair.
Like
You
a
reckon?
redneck.
Yeah, twigs in your hair. You're driving your dad's car. You're crashing it. Oh, that's
Yeah.
fine. It's not illegal now. And then you've gone into the city. You've gone to Rockhampton.
Yep.
Chased your sort of cricket career. Then, just where was your headspace coming over here? Were you excited or nervous or what?
It was a lot of things. It was complete unknown. I knew, like, because I came over in 2017, so I'd had my 2 ankle surgeries at the start of the year, and I said, right, I need to go and spend some time at Loz, and I need, because I'd missed a big chunk of the season, I need to go and play some cricket. So let's go play county cricket. 2 weeks out from getting here, I was meant to play with Notts, and had a call with them and said, visa issues getting in the road. You can't play. So literally, I couldn't play G grade club cricket. Anything with competition and a structure and a ladder, I wasn't allowed to play.
Because you don't put a fake name in, like Billy,
Should
Sport
have,
Billy
eh?
Hill, Billy I.E.
Billy Hill.
Billy Hill,
Billy Hill.
Billy Hill.
That's a good name.
Should have, but I didn't.
Yeah.
And I think I was very conscious at the time, if I want to be here long term, then I can't arse up the system.
Yeah.
I can't have a red cross against my name. I was very lucky though. That was the year of the Women's 50 Over World Cup. And so I was travelling around watching Loz play. And the coach at the time, he was awesome. He'd say to Loz, "Where's Courtney?" She said, "Oh, put her in an Airbnb." And he said, "What the hell are you doing? Like, get her in here. They're well looked after. They got their own rooms and stuff." So it was like, she can stay with us. So I toured around with him, and then he said, "What's Courtney doing tomorrow? She fancy net bowling?" "Yeah, I'll come and net bowl at Lord's." Brilliant. Lauren didn't like it because I'm a bit of a dick when we get in the nets and
You're
mouth.
chirping a bit.
Oh,
yeah.
of course I do. So she didn't like that. So Robbo just made sure I was bowling against others. But it was great training for me. Went home, finished year with the Fire and Brisbane Heat. And I knew I was coming back, and I was like, I can't play cricket here.
Yeah.
What the hell am I going to do?
Was that a big chunk of your identity?
Massive.
Gone?
Like I said, and that's where I come back to the conversation. I sat with my auntie one day, and it was probably at the time I was a bit like, oh, what am I doing? And it was at the end of, will I get recontracted, won't I? And she said to me, she asked me that question, "Who are you, Corkers?" And I said, I'm a cricketer and I'm a teacher. And she said, "Is that all you think you are?" And I was like, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that question really got me thinking.
Yeah.
And she said, "You're so much more than that. And you'll find success in another space. You just got to back yourself."
Yeah, people get their identity wrapped around, a specific thing.
Bloody profession.
And yeah, why do we get that confused? Why do we end up being like defined by
I think
what
it's because they get adulation and respect for doing that, so they cling on to it. So then, if there's any prospects of doing something different, they don't get the same pat on the back in the street or the same round of applause after a game. I think that's when they
But we
struggle
need
to let go.
We need to label people, don't we? Like we need a
Yeah.
label for everything now. Everyone's got a label. Like we need to say what you do, why are you here, what are you doing? Like, and I find it crazy. It's like, can you imagine 200 years ago? They were just not. I think we're obsessed with the status of what you do, and we get our egos like so wrapped around it. So that was a tricky time for you then to just navigate that, especially with Lauren still playing. And
Yeah,
I'd imagine
so-
that's almost like makes you acutely aware of what you haven't got anymore, if you know what
Yeah.
I mean. That she's still doing it.
Yeah, definitely. But I soon flick a switch. Like, Loz gets the shits with me a lot because she'll say, "Oh, she just cracks on with things
Yeah.
better than she does." Like, and she's well aware of it, and they're conversations that we have.
Oh, she just gets on with stuff. Oh, it's
Yeah,
annoying.
how do you just get on with it? I did. I had a bad couple of days when I first arrived. Like,
yeah.
I went to, and I'd set it up before I came, so I knew I had something to go to, a trial anyway. And I went to my first training session. It must have been a Tuesday night. And the Wednesday night, meanwhile, I've been in England, went to Paris for 4 days, and I've been in England 3. Still not over bloody jet lag. One training session. The next night, I was literally washing the dishes at the sink, which is a rarity.
The feral housewife.
I'm the chef. She's
Right, I'm fine.
so. And I burst into tears. And I was just standing there washing the dishes, and you know when you just kind of freeze and you just, I don't know if you boys do, but I was just crying. And she said, "Courtney, what's wrong?" And I dried my hands and I sat on the floor and I cried and I cried and I cried. And I just said, I just felt so lost. No family, no friends. Lauren was really the only person I had in England. No family, no friends, no cricket, no school, and my job as a teacher. And she just said to me, like, "It's going to be okay. You've had one training session at the Rhinos. Just, you'll find mates.
Yeah.
Like, you'll find work. It'll be all right."
And how did the Rhinos thing come about? Just
So, Joel Moon was his dad. I worked with his dad.
Yeah.
So, sort of October time every year, Joel would come home and he'd train in the gym. And so Mooney was one of my favourite colleagues at work. So we were tight. And then I followed the Rhinos because of the connection with Joel. And it was through social media. They were doing trials and I went, maybe I'll do that when I go over. So I spoke to Mooney, who spoke to Joel, who got in Cuthbo's ear. And I asked Loz, I said, "Do you know anyone at the Rhinos?" She said, "Oh, yeah, an old cricket mate maybe played with Lois." Sent a random message to Lois, who was captain at the time, and said, "Hey, I'm an Aussie, coming over."
Hey, I'm an Aussie.
Hey, I'm an
Good
Aussie.
day,
I'm an Aussie.
mate, I'm an
Just
Aussie.
so you
G'day,
know, I'm Australian.
Yeah, and it was, and I did. I'd love to find the message and read it again because it's quite funny. But I know I've missed trials, but any chance.
so that was because you'd played as a kid, touch, but never as a proper rugby league match.
No, I
So
hadn't
you
played rugby league
you've
since
gone
I was
out
12.
out on a limb there massively.
Yeah.
From one professional sport to another, and said, "Any chance for trial? Give me a chance."
I'd
That's
continued
ballsy,
to play
that.
touch footy.
Yeah, but it's very different touch to full contact,
Oh, yeah.
isn't it?
Played a bit of Aussie rules. And I just thought, is it time? Is it time to go back? And
That's cool.
that probably just instilled the excitement that, this is another little adventure.
I like it.
It's a reminder, isn't it? So you were going through in the kitchen, like a kitchen floor reset.
Yep.
It's like right, full on the floor, crying,
Distraught.
sobbing, right, distraught, and from that, you need to get going again, don't you? So
Yeah.
how did you get from the floor there to where you are now, where you're part of a very successful, fantastically entertaining Leeds Rhinos team?
Number one, it was Loz just saying it's going to be okay.
As simple as that, just the support of somebody.
Yeah, someone to say it's going to be okay. And that was it. I went back on the Thursday night. So that first week I didn't play. Cuthbo had said to me, "I'd love to play you, but..." I'd been to 2 training sessions. "I'd love to play you, but the girls have done a massive pre-season in the shitty winter. I can't do it." And I said, "I don't expect you to. I think that's the right thing to do."
Yeah.
And I stood in the freezing cold, wet, drizzly day Odsal. That's
Yeah, oof.
Bradford.
That's
Yeah,
a
yeah.
particularly wet, drizzly place.
Oh, mate, that was an interesting experience. So I'm
You had
standing
your shoes
there.
on. You had your shoes on by this
Yeah, I bet
stage,
you
I'm
did.
assuming.
I did have my shoes on.
About 4 pairs of socks, I
Wow.
reckon.
And Loz, her dad and brother came as well to watch. And we're standing, because I'd gone on the bus. They said, come on the team bus with us and you're welcome to be in the dugout. And I said, no, that's team time. So I'll be over here with the family. And I watched that day thinking, what the hell? I'm in coat, gloves, beanie, boots. How the hell am I going to get my kid off down to shorts and shirt next week if I play? This is ridiculous. But I stood there and I thought, nah, I can contribute something to this group. I can't wait to play. Whenever that is, I think I can offer something. And I think it was just that self-confidence of, I can offer something.
So you brought leadership.
And it can offer me something.
Yeah, for sure. So it's sense of community. You know, sport, I think we
Yeah.
all...
Oh, being part of the
The
teams.
reason you said about, you know, what's the biggest thing in cricket is your friends.
Yeah.
Like, sport is a community, isn't it? It's a place. It's a place for you to feel, like, comfortable, confident, and it gives you relationships. And the end result of that is performance. But we get so transfixed on performance that we forget about the things that it brings to you.
Yeah.
And it's sometimes you have to go back round to the start of a sport
Yeah.
to actually get that again.
Yeah.
So I'm quite envious of you because you got to go back in at sport and really appreciate what it's
Cool,
given
eh?
you again.
Yeah. And I think through my couple of years before I got to England, I'd done a lot of self-work, call it.
Yeah.
I'd spent a lot of sessions in counselling. I'd spent a lot of sessions on like professional development with a former nun of
Right.
40 years who was a terrific mentor. And I got to a point where I worked out my 3 core things, which was, I thought were friends, fun, and competing. But in actual fact, it was, instead of friends, it was community. Instead of fun, it was learning. And instead of competing, it was just play. So between those 3 things, I got here and I went, that offers me all 3, but most importantly, I only had Loz. How do I find my people and my connection through community? And I was consciously aware that I had to go and find that and establish that, find those 3 things.
And you found it.
Oh, bloody
At the
oath,
Rhinos.
tenfold.
Bloody oath, mate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can see that.
Oh,
Okay. It's, you know, and you know, I think that moment where you move abroad, like Mark, you went through this, and you're with somebody who lives in that country, there's a hell of a lot of responsibility on Lauren as well, or the partner that you're with.
Yeah.
They feel almost responsible, don't they, for you? And
yes, she did.
Yeah.
I think it's important that when you come over here to have your own life,
Yep.
because it could be quite suffocating for Loz if she just like hung on to her all the time. It's like what we're doing today, because she's probably had her own friends and her own experiences. I think it's really natural and I think probably more successful in relationships if you have your own kind of world a little bit. That's obviously needs crossover,
Yeah.
but you need your own thing. You can't just be away from your family and friends and just latch onto one person every day.
Yeah,
It's not
and
healthy.
I think that was definitely something that we had to go through, and probably a little bit different in, she almost felt guilty that I was here, and probably my fault a little bit at times. I was here to support her because she could only play for England from here, and that put a lot of pressure on her and her cricket and her. I didn't feel that way most of the time. Sometimes I did give her a razzle and tell her to pull her socks up, but yeah, she felt an incredible sense of, I must perform because Courtney's given up this.
Yeah.
And that was not a good thing.
No,
Or it was a weight for her to carry.
yeah, yeah. And life settles, doesn't it?
Yeah?
You know, life settles, and you've found a happy, you know, sort of a good place
Yeah,
to be.
definitely.
In fact, what a great place that you're both in right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Are you
No,
here
we've-
for like
we've-
forever, do you think?
Nah.
No.
If it was weather like this all the time, I'd stay forever, but I find winters tough.
Yeah.
I find being away from family tough. They're the two things, weather and family, friends.
So the plan is back to Australia at some stage.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, you know, the women's cricket scene is really taken off domestically here. So once Lauren decides to wrap up with England, she'll still want to continue her cricket stuff. And I've also got a great job in cricket here. And I love being a part of that. And I love being a part of this new transition into professionalisation. So I'm not going anywhere too quickly, but eventually.
How
one day.
intense are you to work with? You're very intense, aren't you, to
The
work
smile
with?
says very.
Are you demanding at work?
Oh, I don't
Are
know.
you demanding?
You have to ask them.
Are you hard work?
Well, the kids joke. I joke. I say, I don't have many rules, but it's probably the 79th rule. I don't know. I think I'm pretty relatively chilled,
Yeah, yeah.
but Lauren says you're just intense in other ways.
So we need to ask Lauren this question, don't we?
Yeah,
I
we do.
take it serious. I take my job very
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
seriously. Yep, definitely.
And so with rugby league, obviously World Cup year, big year for women's rugby league, for disability,
Yeah.
you know, for the wheelchair game, for the men's game. That must be hugely exciting
Yeah,
to be involved.
massive. And it's the reason why I said yes. I sat back for nearly 3 years deciding what would I do. But to have a home World Cup and a year where you've got combined all three together, that's pretty special.
It
It's
is.
something I thought, nah, I've got to be a part of that.
Yeah. And it's
I thought, yeah, nah.
I was going to say
yeah,
that.
nah.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
yeah, I want to be a part of that.
Nah. No, it's amazing the World Cup at the end of the
Yeah.
year, Flash.
Yeah.
Some amazing games going to be played, and the fact that it's been promoted, you know, the way it's been promoted, I think it's really, I think it's incredible.
brilliant.
I think it's been really well done in that it's equally been promoted. There's not
Yeah.
leveraged the men's game over the.
It's a reflection of the values of the sport, I think.
Yeah.
I don't think it's been promoted. Been the three different factions have been promoted for publicity or for any other reason that, apart from that, it's a very inclusive sport where we just want everyone to grab a ball and play, and it's nothing more than that. It's great to see, and I think rugby league has so many good life skills and lessons that people can take from it, and hopefully that I'm sure it'll be showcased at the end of this year, and I'm really excited for it.
Yeah, and give us some names to look out for in the women's rugby league
women's
world.
space.
We need some big. Who's the star names
From England.
from all over? Who's
Oh,
the
from
best?
wherever.
Let's get into it.
Oh, okay. I do think we have some people here who, in England, we get this right. Could be really cool.
Yeah, yeah,
Some of how we can compete.
yeah.
I think. So I think number one, I'm going to go to someone like Georgia Roach,
Yeah,
who's my
yeah.
little mate from Leeds.
Yeah.
I love playing alongside her, and to see her skill as a 21-year-old, I'm hugely excited to play alongside her. I'm so excited to potentially be in a squad, and the other week playing for England, to be dishing off to Amy Hardcastle
Oh, wow.
rather than being palmed off by.
Yeah.
She's so powerful,
Yeah.
isn't she?
Terrific.
Incredible, Yeah.
So I think they can have a big impact on this stage. Australia-wise, you know, I'm quite excited to see the new cycle of players
Yeah,
coming
yeah.
through out there. Forever, well, not forever, but of recent years, it's been the Ali Brigginshaw show. But I'm so excited by some of these young players coming through. The likes of a Tamika Upton, Hannah Southwell. You know, I'm really excited to see how they come. And you know what? I think it's going to be a very interesting squad that the Aussies bring. Yeah, And you know what? Don't discount like someone like P&G.
Yeah, yeah.
The French, oh, forgive my ignorance, can't remember her name. She's played a bit of the NRL stuff out there.
Yep.
You know, I just can't wait. And the beauty of World Cups, you look at it, 3 round games, 2 finals, 5 games. That's it.
There's a chance.
And really, start with the 3 games,
Yeah, yeah.
the
yeah.
pool games. You stuff it up there, out the door.
You made some great sound effects tonight as well.
I'm always doing sound effects.
Yeah.
But, you know, the must-win nature of the competition is,
It's exciting, isn't it?
yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's been a real pleasure actually getting to know you, getting to have a chat and just benchmarking whether what I thought about you was correct.
true or
I
not.
think I think I feel like I was pretty much nailed on. Been really interesting. I think we loved hearing about your childhood, about you, the influence that your parents have had upon you, about your like single-mindedness, your stubbornness, your will to compete, your belligerent like nature, the way that you attack life is like a great lesson for everybody. And not only that, to just fucking mix it up.
Yeah.
You know, one thing ends.
Spice of life, they
Yeah,
say.
just get after it. And I think,
I'm really impressed how ballsy you are with that.
yeah.
Because a lot of people care what others think. Or she thinks she's going to try rugby, and you just didn't care. I think that's quite inspiring to see people that just follow the gut, follow the heart, and they're just willing to back themselves.
Yeah. I think it comes from having good people around you that give you a little shove. I'm a confident kind of person, but at the same time there is self-doubt.
oh yeah,
You just need someone. You need to remind yourself, and experiences like this just top up a bucket and that sits on a seesaw. And when you do have them self-doubts, you just remind yourself of, hang on a minute, there's a bit more over in that bucket, so off you pop.
Yeah.
Off you pop.
Go multiply it. Go. It's like investing in shares, isn't it?
Yeah.
Go
It's
invest
compound.
again.
Yeah.
So
And as well, like just finally, just the importance of, you said a hug, somebody just saying it's going to be all right. Like those relationships in our lives, the supporting relationships in our lives for people who play sport and people who don't in all walks of life, they're just as important as anything.
Yeah.
So, Courtney Winfield-Hill, it's been an
thanks, gents.
absolute pleasure.
Loved
Good luck.
it.
Good luck in the World Cup.
Hopefully, get selected first.
Well, you're
got
in.
a
Trust
Super
me.
League season to wrap
You're
up.
in.
Trust
first,
me, you're
but
in.
You're in, yeah.
You're in.
Well done.
Even if
I
you're not
hope
in,
so.
I reckon you'll
Congratulations.
force your way in just out of sheer blunt.
I'll run water. I don't care what it takes. And this is the thing. I said to Craig, I want to be a part of this group. I'll do whatever, but I want to see England do really well.
Yeah,
so
I'm picking you
can't
anyway.
wait.
So you're as
Thanks,
good as
mate.
you're as good
Get
as
on
it.
the selectives panel,
Yeah.
would you?
Well, that's another episode of Out of Your League. We've been joined by the fascinating Courtney Winfield-Hill. Amazing build-up to World Cup, the World Cup at the end of the year. Download this podcast and all of the other podcasts wherever you get them from. I hope you enjoyed.